Did Ryan Reynolds ditch Blake Lively at the premiere of Another Simple Favor to save his own career?
They will prepare for that in a million different ways. They will tell journalists what they can and cannot ask. Her PR firm will only walk her up to certain friendly journalists.
Stop everything! Chris Evans just blew the lid off a secret Marvel scandal, and it's pointing straight at Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. You heard that right. Hollywood's golden couple is under fire, accused of orchestrating a Marvel scam so outrageous it might shatter their clean-cut image. And guess who's dropping the receipts? Captain America himself. Behind the smiles and red carpet glitz, Blake Lively has been labeled the mastermind of a devious scheme lurking in the shadows of the MCU. Why did she do it? All to seize the Marvel spotlight for herself, her alleged motive, pure greed for Marvel fame and fortune. This explosive exposé has it all. Secret deals, leaked messages, betrayals, and we're just getting started. Did America's sweetheart really call in the MCU and drag Ryan into it? Or is there an even bigger twist waiting in the wings? Grab your popcorn because these receipts are about to shake Hollywood to its core. Trust me, you do not want to miss this.
Insiders are spilling on the real reason why Ryan Reynolds left Blake Lively alone on the red carpet amid the Anna Kendrick beef, and it's all about money.
Blake Lively arrived at what should have been a defining moment in her career. A return to the red carpet meant to silence her critics and remind the world of her star power. Instead, it became one of the most humiliating nights of her life. She walked into the Another Simple Favor premiere expecting admiration, expecting the cameras to adore her the way they always had, expecting the industry to embrace her as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The energy was off from the start. The photographers still took their pictures, but the usual buzz, the electric excitement that used to follow Blake, was gone. The smiles she received were tight, the interactions stilted, and the entire atmosphere carried a weight that even Blake, with her years of media training, could not ignore. Then there was the protester, standing outside the event with a sign that read, "Justice for Justin Baldoni. Blake lied."
Several other actors attended premieres at South by without their spouses or significant others. I mean, one, why are you responding?
This was not a casual heckler or a disgruntled fan. This was something far worse. A direct attack on her credibility, a public manifestation of the resentment that had been brewing for months. Hollywood is built on illusion, but no amount of charm or well-placed smiles could erase the truth written in bold letters outside that premiere. For months, Blake had worked tirelessly to pretend that the chaos surrounding her wasn't real. The legal drama, the PR nightmare, the rumors of a shattered relationship with Ryan Reynolds, the fallout from her feud with Baldoni, she had pushed forward as if keeping up appearances was enough to undo the damage. She seemed convinced that Hollywood would play along, that the industry would once again fall in line and allow her to dictate the narrative. But Hollywood had stopped listening. The industry had turned on her.
Blake attended with her cast and filmmakers and had a great time. Several other actors attended premieres at South by without their spouses or significant others.
The media was no longer spinning stories in her favor, and worst of all, the people she had once called colleagues, friends, and supporters were making it abundantly clear that they no longer wanted to be associated with her. The final blow, the moment that truly crystallized the shift, came when Anna Kendrick, her co-star and longtime industry peer, was asked what it was like to work with her again. It was the kind of softball question that Hollywood actors answer with an automatic smile and a rehearsed response, even when the truth is far from pleasant. But Kendrick didn't even pretend. 4 words. 4 words that landed heavier than any public scandal or tabloid exposé. "Oh, you know," was all she offered.
You're clearly unnerved. You didn't even need to respond. I wasn't that surprised that Ryan wasn't there. It wasn't his movie.
There was no warmth, no attempt at civility. It wasn't just a little, "Oh, she's annoying." The disinterest in Kendrick's voice, the complete lack of effort to maintain even the barest illusion of friendship, said everything. Anna Kendrick did not want to be asked about Blake Lively. She did not want to be seen defending her. She did not want to be forced into yet another fake Hollywood friendship for the sake of press tours and box office numbers. And Kendrick wasn't the only one making her feelings known. Henry Golding, another one of Blake's co-stars, was asked how it felt to reunite with the cast. His response was dripping in sarcasm. "What could go wrong?" he quipped, accompanied by a smirk. That barely concealed jab. It was all the confirmation the public needed. Blake Lively wasn't just struggling to maintain her image. She was actively losing the respect of the very people she needed to stand by her. The industry had grown tired of her.
It was weird that Ryan was there and it ends with us. If he shows up to every one of her movies that has nothing to do with, I think it would be worse reaction. I do.
Hollywood's most successful stars maintained their power through relationships, through alliances, through carefully cultivated networks of mutual benefit. But Blake's reputation had become toxic, and those alliances were dissolving. The fashion world, which had once adored her, was now keeping its distance. The luxury brands that once made her the face of their campaigns were quietly cutting ties. Hollywood agents were advising studios against casting her, whispering that she was a financial risk. Producers were watching the tension surrounding her and choosing not to involve themselves. And even at South by Southwest, where she had tried to regain some sense of normalcy, the cracks were impossible to ignore. She waved to fans, signed autographs, flashed the same perfectly polished smile she always had, but no one was fooled. Blake Lively was not in control anymore.
So I can't fault him for not showing up. The fact that he's responding is interesting. It shows they're paying attention and they're unnerved.
She had built her entire career on the illusion of effortless grace, on being the cool, composed, untouchable leading lady. But illusions only work when people are willing to believe in them. And now, no one believed in Blake Lively. The premiere of Another Simple Favor was not the triumphant moment she had hoped for. It was something else entirely. A public confirmation that the industry was washing its hands of her. This wasn't just a temporary setback. This wasn't a minor controversy she could smooth over with a well-placed interview or a strategically planned public appearance. This was the end of something. Blake Lively was once a staple of Hollywood's A-list, a fashion icon, a box office draw, a name that carried weight in the industry. But the moment an actress becomes a liability, Hollywood moves on. And right now, Blake Lively is a liability. The industry's patience had run out. Anna Kendrick's cold dismissal was not just personal, it was professional. She wasn't just done with Blake Lively as a person, she was done with Blake Lively as a brand. And Hollywood had reached the same conclusion.
I stand by my report, and be prepared. Don't be mad at the messenger that I told you Anna Kendrick's not very nice either.
Blake may still try to push forward, still show up to events, still attempt to maintain the illusion of control, but the reality is simple. She is no longer in control, no longer an asset, and no longer someone Hollywood wants to protect. The world sees through her now, and no red carpet, no forced smile, no carefully orchestrated PR campaign can change that. Blake Lively stepped onto that red carpet expecting a triumphant return, a moment to reclaim her place in Hollywood's glittering hierarchy. But the atmosphere told a different story. The energy was off, the smiles around her forced, the enthusiasm absent. The industry that once adored her was now watching with quiet detachment, treating her not as a star making a comeback, but as someone they no longer needed.
Blake Lively's done awful things to Justin and needs to pay the price in court. We'll find it out. But what I'm trying to warn you is, apparently Anna's no angel either.
The illusion she worked so hard to maintain was crumbling in real time. Every step she took, every pose she struck was met with something far colder than criticism: indifference. The kind of indifference that signals an irreversible shift, the moment when Hollywood collectively decides someone is no longer relevant. Blake Lively had spent years building her career on being the woman everyone wanted to be around. But now, she was standing in the middle of a room full of people who couldn't wait to move past her. Outside the event, a protester held up a sign that cut through any remaining doubt about where things stood. Justice for Justin Baldoni, Blake lied. It was the kind of public humiliation that no Hollywood A-lister ever expects to face. A direct and personal attack that shattered any illusion that the public still viewed her as untouchable. This wasn't a simple fan upset over a film. This was someone making a statement about her character, and it wasn't just one person.
Get your ego in check. All you actors, get your egos in check. And yeah, I'm gonna call out actors who have way too big of an ego.
It was a reflection of a much bigger shift. For months, Blake had been pretending that the scandals and legal battles circling her were just temporary obstacles, that she could power through them with the same polished PR moves she always relied on. But Hollywood is not forgiving, and it does not forget. The industry had already made its decision. Anna Kendrick, once considered Blake's friendly co-star, delivered a statement so brutally dismissive it instantly became the defining moment of the night. When asked about working with Blake again, she barely concealed her lack of interest. "Oh, you know," was all she had to say. No excitement, no warmth, no attempt at professionalism, just 4 words laced with quiet rejection. Anna Kendrick's response had set the tone for the night, and there was no coming back from it. Hollywood has a way of collectively deciding when someone is no longer worth the effort, and Blake was now at the receiving end of that decision.
My guess is she's not going to bring him because he's almost more disliked than she is, and that her promo game is just to pretend that she's really scared of the public now, when she was the person who initially wanted all of this to be publicized because she was so confident in her power and her husband's power.
Her past charm, her perfectly curated brand, her ability to manipulate media narratives, none of it mattered anymore. There was no sympathy for her, no curiosity about what she would do next. She was simply being left behind. She knew this feeling. She had seen it happen before. Hollywood had done this to countless actresses before her, women who had once been at the center of everything, only to wake up one day and realize that they were no longer wanted. And now it was happening to her. She had built an empire on public perception, carefully controlling every aspect of her career, her personal life, and the way she was presented to the world. But what happens when the world stops looking? What happens when the industry decides you are no longer useful? For Blake Lively, the answer was playing out in front of her, second by second.
Blake Lively apparently fought for top billing in this film. And these are things that we don't even consider as the public, but even when you see a movie poster, that's a fight between people of who's going to be on the movie poster, who's going to be presented as a star of this film.
She wasn't being vilified or attacked. She was simply being forgotten. For Blake, the realization was far more crushing than any headline scandal. A public fall from grace could be fought against. An actor could issue statements, stage a comeback, lean on supporters willing to vouch for them, but being forgotten? That was irreversible. Hollywood wasn't turning her into a cautionary tale or a tabloid scandal. It was doing something worse. It was acting as though she never mattered in the first place. The premiere had made that painfully clear. The calculated distance from her co-stars, the disinterested press, the way fans at the event weren't clamoring to see her the way they once had. Even the photographers, who once fought to capture her from every angle, seemed uninterested. They still took the pictures, of course, but they weren't selling the same way they used to. No one was looking for the latest Blake Lively moment anymore.
And now that we know that Blake Lively is quite aggressive in general during these movie negotiations, it was revealed that she was similarly aggressive about The Simple Favor 2, and she wanted to be featured prominently.
She could feel it happening, that gradual slipping away. It wasn't a sharp drop, not an immediate fall from grace. It was something much slower, much more agonizing. It was the knowledge that when she left the event, the industry wouldn't be talking about her the next day. The headlines wouldn't be filled with stories about her outfit, her performance, her presence at the premiere. Instead, they would be about Anna Kendrick's blunt dismissal, Henry Golding's smirk, the quiet but undeniable shift happening around her. Blake had spent years maintaining an iron grip on her public image. She had crafted the illusion of effortless elegance, of being the actress who wasn't like the rest, who didn't chase attention but naturally commanded it. But now, the truth was setting in. Hollywood didn't need her anymore. And without Hollywood, what was left?
They will prepare for that a million different ways. They will tell journalists what they can and cannot ask. Her PR firm will only walk her up to certain friendly journalists.
Her entire career had been built on being the industry's golden girl, a status she had spent over a decade carefully maintaining. She wasn't the type of actress who had built a reputation on her acting range or her ability to take on daring, transformative roles. She had built her career on something far more fragile, her image. And now, that image was fading. Blake had always assumed she was too careful, too smart, too strategic to ever let this happen. But the truth was, no one is untouchable. Hollywood only keeps people around as long as they are useful. And right now, Blake wasn't bringing anything the industry couldn't get from someone younger, fresher, and with far less controversy attached to them. Her endorsements were already slipping away. Luxury brands had once competed to have her front their campaigns, trusting that her presence elevated their image. But the problem with fashion is that it is obsessed with the next thing, and Blake Lively was no longer the next thing.
So this apprehension is kind of, like I said, just trying to make people feel bad. And I think it's kind of perfect karma that now there's this apparent friction between her and Anna Kendrick, real friction with her co-star.
The industry's silence wasn't just professional, it was personal. The people who had once been eager to be seen with her were stepping back, not because of any dramatic falling out, but because Hollywood survives by aligning itself with power. And Blake Lively's power was gone. She had felt it in the way the press handled her that night. The once gushing articles about her effortless charm were nowhere to be found. The glowing headlines, the fawning reviews of her presence on the red carpet, all missing. In their place were articles about who wasn't reacting to her, about the body language of the people forced to stand beside her, about the Hollywood elite who weren't standing with her anymore. Blake Lively was experiencing something she had never prepared for: obsolescence.
She wanted Blake Lively to address her ongoing battle with Baldoni.
She had spent years assuming that her position was secured, that she had built something unshakable. But now, standing in the aftermath of what should have been a moment of triumph, she understood the brutal truth. No one in Hollywood is truly irreplaceable. And now she was the one being replaced. Blake had spent years watching it happen to others. Actresses who were once the center of attention, adored by the public and showered with opportunities, slowly faded from relevance when the industry found someone newer, younger, less complicated. She had always assumed she was different, that her ability to shape her own image, to play the media game with precision, would protect her from the inevitable. But Hollywood has no loyalty. It rewards what is useful and discards what is not.
There obviously now is this big elephant that's in the room that no one wants to acknowledge, and they're going to walk this red carpet and not acknowledge it unless, of course, Ryan Reynolds walks the red carpet with her.
The worst part was that she could feel it happening in real time. It wasn't an overnight collapse. It was something much more insidious, a gradual erosion of influence, the quiet distancing of people she once considered allies, the slow realization that fewer doors were opening and fewer people were calling. It wasn't that she had been exiled, it was that no one was choosing her anymore. The premiere had been a test, a way to measure whether she could still command the kind of attention she once did. And the results were undeniable. The industry was watching, but not in admiration. They were observing, waiting to see if she still had the power to turn the tide in her favor. The answer was clear. She didn't. She had miscalculated.
So she's a serial fraudster. That's called fraud.
For months, she had convinced herself that the controversies surrounding her, her feud with Justin Baldoni, the whispers about her marriage, the growing sense that her name carried more baggage than prestige, were manageable, that she could outlast them, rise above them, force the world to see her the way she wanted to be seen. But the industry had already decided, and once Hollywood decides, there is no going back. She saw it in the way people spoke to her that night. The polite but detached interactions, the obligatory small talk that never extended beyond what was necessary. There were no hushed whispers of excitement when she entered the room, no eager photographers scrambling to get the perfect shot. The warmth that once followed her everywhere had been replaced with something colder: indifference.
Ryan, have you been doing all these ads live during our podcast?
Yes, of course. Anything for Strikeforce 5.
It was the same indifference that had killed the careers of so many before her. Not scandal, not outrage, but simple, quiet disinterest. The brands had moved on, the directors had moved on, the audience had moved on. And now, Blake Lively had to ask herself a question she had never considered before. What happens when the world stops looking? She had always been able to control the conversation, to spin things in her favor, to present herself exactly as she wanted to be seen. But this wasn't about image anymore. This wasn't about carefully crafted PR moves or well-timed social media posts. This was about something much bigger: relevance. And once Hollywood decides you're no longer relevant, there is no press tour, no Instagram post, no red carpet look that can save you. For the first time in her career, Blake Lively was facing something she had never prepared for. She was fading. Not in a dramatic, explosive way, not in a scandalous, headline-grabbing fall from grace, but in the way that matters most in Hollywood, in the way that makes you forgettable. And in this town, being forgotten is the only thing worse than being hated.